together and do it all. They said nothing's forever, and they refuse to see the change in me. Why won't they wake up? Now get the guns, the darts from my generation.
All right, welcome to the RealScoop Podcast, episode 5. This week we'll be talking about legacies, NBA legacies, all that and more on the next episode of the RealScoop. All right, hello everyone. This is the RealScoop Podcast, episode 5, as you just heard, brought to you by Double G Sports. And if you've been following this podcast, you're seeing video now, and it's me. Hello. This is the voice behind the madness. Like I said, mentioned in almost all my episodes. I intend to make this an entertaining podcast with deep insights and call out stuff that you won't hear otherwhere. And like I said, well, we're going to keep trying to make it better. And I thought maybe adding video might help stick out a little bit from everybody else. I understand sometimes if you listen to podcasts, if you're a fan of podcasts, it's always sometimes a little tough just watching a blank screen or just a logo. But we'll see. I don't know if my face doesn't improve it, but we're going to be talking about the NBA Finals. Of course, last night, this is May 30th, 2018. Last night, Golden State sealed the deal, Game 7 over the Rockets in Houston. They're going to be returning to the finals against the Cavaliers, who won their conference final. And we're going to have, for the 4th consecutive year, the Cavaliers and the Warriors battling out for the NBA title. Now, some people last night I saw on social media, some people were a little upset that the Warriors won. Now, listen, in the NBA, the NBA, when it comes down to it, a lot of people are fans of teams, but on the whole, most people, I won't say most, a significant bunch of NBA fans, when it comes down to it, are bandwagon fans, front runners. You know, they'll say, "Oh, I like this team because of that player." You know, the basketball is one of the 4 major sports where that's really normal. I mean, it's not normal. I don't think if you're a fan of an NBA team, I think you should be a fan of that team and the jersey, not so much players. You know, you're loyal to the uniform, not to the players. But in the NBA, in a league that's been star driven, really since the inception of the NBA, you go back to the '60s with Wilt Chamberlain and Oscar Robertson and Bill Russell. In the '70s, Kareem, and then of course the '80s with Bird, Magic, Jordan. In the '90s too. And the list goes on and on. I remember people. When the Bulls in the late '80s and early '90s hit the seed, that's when it really started. I believe. Oh, I don't like the Bulls. I just like Jordan. Of course you do. You're witnessing one of the best players ever. But that's okay. But I think you could like the player, but what happens when that player plays your team? You know, in the late '80s and early '90s, mid '90s, when the Bulls played the Knicks, I wasn't going for Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen. I wanted the Knicks to beat the Bulls and Jordan. But that's something they would always fall short of doing, and that just makes them like everybody else, second place. But only in the NBA could someone say that. I mean, if you're not going to say it in baseball. I mean, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm an Angels fan because I like Mike Trout. He's my favorite player," Or now, of course, everybody's in New York now. You're going to see a shift towards the Yankees with all their sluggers. We saw in the '90s the same thing happened where in New York it became a Yankees town because everybody was pretty much a star of the Yankees. It happened in the late '80s with the Mets, when it was a Mets town. The Mets were very good, but only in basketball was this normal. In football, that somebody there'll be a fight if you say that. You'll be laughed out of the room. You can't say, "Oh well, I'm a Giants fan, but I like Des Bryant. I like the Cowboys. When I don't watch the Giants, I love the Cowboys because I like Des Bryant." No, it would be considered sacrilege. But in the NBA, this is allowed because in the NBA, and this is what I'm getting to. This is my point that I'm making. In the NBA, which is a star-driven league, probably more than any other team, with the exception of football, with the quarterback position, where if you have a great quarterback, your team is pretty much guaranteed of having very good success. But the NBA is a star-driven league. Okay, we went over the decades. Okay, in the '80s you had Magic and Bird, the Lakers and Celtics, and Jordan, Shaq, Kobe. Now you have LeBron, and then now you have the Golden State Warriors, which have become quote unquote a super team. But last night I saw it a lot. It was quite frequent. A lot of people were disappointed that it was going to be another Golden State and Cleveland Cavaliers final for the fourth year. They wanted to see something different. Yeah, I guess, but listen, the NBA right now, and I've said it, I keep saying it, the NBA is very weak. It's weak. I've mentioned it in my YouTube channel in the past. If any of you have heard me, the NBA, if you get rid of LeBron and you got rid of the Golden State Warriors, what do you have? Just think about it. What do you have? There's nothing. Where are those stars that are nationally known? Anthony Davis, he's still young. He hasn't done anything. Russell Westbrook, his team, he's been in the finals. James Harden, you think he's a megastar? No, he's an all-star player. Right now, he's a first-team All NBA in a very weak league. And I know last week we talked about the errors. I said you can't fault LeBron, even though LeBron is not the greatest of all time. And if you're watching this, he is not the greatest of all time, not by a long shot. I said maybe top 15, maybe top 20. Oh, I know everybody's going crazy right now. Like, what the hell are you talking about? What is this shit? Yeah. Well, later on in the podcast, we'll go over. We'll go over the top 20 players in NBA history, and we'll see if LeBron has a claim to their spot. This episode, why I called it Legacies, that's what's at stake here. That's why it's interesting. That's why it's captivating this finals. We're seeing it 4 years in a row. Legacies are at stake. If you're a basketball fan, a sports fan, legacies are at stake. LeBron, we know LeBron. He's 3-5 in the finals. This will be his 9th finals. He's made 8 in a row. He made the finals his first time in 2007. Now he's made 8. He's made every finals this decade. And on the other side of the coast, you have the Golden State Warriors. They're here 4 years in a row. And I don't want to hear, Kevin Durant. The Golden State Warriors won their first championship without Kevin Durant, okay? And now they're not as deep as they once were 4 years ago, or 3 years ago. But that's the way the NBA is. It's always been constructed that way with the salary cap. You have your franchise player, your megastar, a real megastar. Then hopefully you could get him a 1A player, a supporting player who's either an all-star or borderline all-star. And then you have to have a couple of good role players, players who are starters who do their job. And then you just have to, if in the NBA you have to get lucky, and you have to find good players who are specialists. That's why in the NBA, out of all sports, it's hard to dethrone the incumbents. Okay, like I said, go to any decade, any era. You'll find one or two, three dominant teams in that decade, and it takes a while to knock them off. Usually, the team or the teams under them have to pay their dues, gain experience, and then finally, if they're successful, they knock them off, and then they go to the next level. So, I want to just quickly go over a couple of the games, especially the last. I want to go over the game sevens, maybe the game six and sevens, real quick. Okay, and if you can see, just it's a scoreboard of the series. The Celtics and Cavaliers. Listen, LeBron in this series, as he did the whole Eastern Conference Finals, he did what he's supposed to do. Being a great player, an all-time player, he beat the teams he should beat. The 2018 Pacers are not juggernauts, okay? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that's not a playoff team. The Sixers, they got lucky this year. The Sixers, they were an upstart team this year. They've been buried in the lottery for the last decade. They've been a joke in the NBA. Last year, the number one draft pick, Ben Simmons, out for the year. He comes back this year, and he made the difference. I said, Ben Simmons, he's going to be one of the best, if not the best player in the NBA within 3 to 5 years. But once the Sixers got past the first round, to me, it felt like they just mailed it in. They were very happy to make the first round, but it's like, oh, now we're playing the Celtics, and we probably can't get ahead anymore. And they mailed it in. Either that or they're a young team. They don't know how to win. That's why in the NBA, there you see it. Celtics won a huge Game 5, going into Cleveland. And listen, again, maybe not everybody, but the Celtics went into these playoffs without their best player, Kyrie Irving. Their big free agent signing never played a game this year, Gordon Hayward. How does LeBron even go down 3-2 to the Celtics? That's the first question. All right, listen, the Celtics are a good team, a good all-around team. Danny Ainge built his fingerprints all over this team. I think I'll check, but I think they might even have a couple more draft picks coming in. So then in Cleveland, LeBron holds court and forces a Game 7 in Boston. And this is where the Boston choked. You can't lose. When you make it this far, you can't lose this Game 7 at home. It was an ugly game. And there you see it. LeBron played 46 minutes basically the whole game. He had 46 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, almost a triple-double. This is a great LeBron, typical vintage LeBron James game. He's done this many times in the playoffs. Again, he is one of the greatest players ever. He is an elite player. He's an all-time player. We're not saying he's not. There you see on the bottom, George Hill, 20. Jeff Green. Listen, and again, This is the Cavaliers team that basically retooled mid-season. It's unheard of. I don't care who you are to do this. Retool in the middle of the season and make the finals. Yes, it's an amazing feat, and credit goes to LeBron and the Cavaliers. Listen, LeBron's greatest assets, or greatest attributes, is his basketball IQ. Okay, I'll tell you what that means. On the floor, he is superior. He has a superior vision on the court, intelligence. He is basically a player coach out there. Okay, and he's a GM also. A lot of great NBA players have ventured off and become GMs or executives who haven't fared too well. Yeah, Jordan, okay. And then there's some who have fared, who aren't that great, or they were just all-star players who have become excellent coaches and general managers and team presidents. Danny Ainge, Steve Kerr, old coach. But LeBron is just on another level. He has been the GM in Cleveland for the last 4 years, and his first time around. Okay, you can't tell me Cleveland makes these transactions without getting input from LeBron. You think if LeBron doesn't want that player to come in, you think the Cavs are going to bring that player? No, of course. He has to have LeBron's stamp of approval, and I'm sure LeBron gives great inputs. He knows the pieces he needs. He knows the types of players he needs to fill those roles that he could play with and be successful. Then Game 7, just look at this. The third quarter and basically the second half is where the Celtics, they didn't answer the bell. Again, call it choking. Yes, I call it choking. And a lot of people might get upset when I use the word choking, but all choking means that you're not ready to win. I'm sorry. It means you are afraid to win. That's what choking means. You in professional sports, whatever, you're going to do it. You have a very good chance to win. But somehow, subconsciously or consciously, individually or collectively, you're afraid to actually beat LeBron. You're afraid to actually win and make the NBA finals. Oh, wow. Well, it's like somebody's going to get upset if you do it. But if the Celtics stay course, they're going to be the future of the East for years and years to come. Danny Ainge hasn't finished building that team in Boston. But Game 7, LeBron has been very good and excellent in Game 7. 35 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists, again, almost a triple-double. He did what he had to do. He beat an undermanned team in a Game 7 of the conference finals. This is where he makes money. And this game was 87-79. This was a throwback game. Not because of the defense. Just a very poor game. There you have it. All right, so now I wanted to show you just a little clip of the trophy presentation to the Western Conference champions. Sorry about that. Last night, Ernie Johnson interviewed Durant and then Draymond.
So we just tried to play Warrior basketball from top to bottom, and everybody came in and contributed tonight.
Kevin, congratulations on that.
It is Draymond. I said Draymond has been the difference for the Warriors.
You're the guy who led this team in rebounds and assists and steals and blocks and turnovers and you name it. But also, I know you had words to say to these guys at halftime of Game 6 when you were down by 10 after trailing by 17. What was the situation in the locker room at halftime of Game 7?
Everybody was in there talking.
the guy who I've heard talk the most these last 2 games is the guy who talks the least any other time is Clay. You know, he's been talking, and, you know, that really rubbed off on everybody else. So I can't take the credit for that. It was a complete team effort. Everybody was talking and sticking together, and we got it done.
There's a familiar team waiting for you on Thursday night as you play Game 1 of the NBA.
Trust me, he's not. The Warriors are not worried about the Cavaliers. They are confident.
A Cleveland team that you haven't seen before. Your 2 meetings with them came.
The Warriors know what they have to do to beat Cleveland. Okay, and let's just go back. As I was saying, the Warriors, Draymond Green, in no way are they worried. Are they losing sleep over facing the Cavaliers? They're not scared of the Cavaliers. Okay. In fact, they would consider itself a major disappointment and an epic fail if they lost to Cleveland. Okay. Draymond Green is not afraid of the Cavaliers or LeBron. I've said many times, Draymond Green is the most important player on this Golden State Warriors team. You take him out of the equation, it all changes. Now you just have a bunch of shooting guards and point guards out there. And I don't think Kevin Durant would be able to shoulder all the extra tasks that would be required of him. Durant would have to become more of a passing and a rebounding player. He could right now. All Durant needs to do is score 25, 28 points, grab 7, 8 rebounds, get 4, 5 assists, and he's good. Draymond Green allows all the Warriors to be effective. All the players on the Warriors are allowed to maximize their strengths, and Draymond Green hides a lot of their weaknesses. Okay. So going into this finals, like I said, a lot of people are upset. You shouldn't be, because this is about legacies. And when I mean about legacies, every finals, it's a legacy. It makes or breaks your career. You may be judged and remembered by your finals. Now LeBron is 3-5. He comes in 3-5. Listen, at the end of his career, if he never makes another finals, 4-5 sounds a lot better than 3-6. Okay, you went to 9 finals and you only won 3 times. Now you'll have the arguments. LeBron lovers will say, "Oh well, that's because LeBron is so good. He takes his bad teams. He has nobody, and he takes his teams to the NBA Finals." True. But that goes back to what I'm saying is that the East specifically is so weak, and no fault of LeBron, that this continues to happen. On years when the Cavaliers shouldn't make the finals, they do, because the East is so weak, and LeBron is that good he could will his team to the finals. Now, again, if LeBron wins this, manages somehow, some way to ride this carpet with the Cavaliers, and he manages to upset the Warriors, it'll make a major shift in his legacy. I mean, it'll be, this player fund will be looked at for a long time to come. Again, yes, it was a weak playoffs to get to the finals in the East, but it is the era we are in, and you can only judge the player in the era we are in. So it's either 3-6 or 4-6. He would have won 2 in Miami and 2 in Cleveland. And on the other side, the Warriors are 2-1. And of course, 3-1 sounds much better than 2-2. A lot of people say it should be 3-0. Maybe. If you really think about it that way. Of course, though, the first meeting with the Cavs and the Warriors, even though the Warriors were a better team that year, I don't know. Maybe because they were nervous. their first time being there, but I think the Cavs might have had a shot to beat them. I would have loved to seen if Irving would have been healthy. Kyrie Irving would have been healthy in that series. The Cavaliers were a little shorthanded. But then again, the second time around, in their second meeting, we all know the story. Golden State blew a 3-1 lead after that infamous kick by Draymond Green in the fifth game. I think in that series, I think Steph Curry was off. If you remember, he had gotten hurt. He hurt his knee in the spring of that year, and I think it really affected him in those last 3 games. He didn't look quite himself. And then last year, we know it was pretty much a cakewalk for Golden State. And I think if they stay the course, it should be this year. See, this is the difference. Why I don't consider LeBron to be in that in the top 10 or the top 15. I never seen him where he have that. I can't put my words to it. He doesn't have that killer mentality. Maybe he does, but he doesn't show it. But he does show sometimes weakness. He shows vulnerability. Something I never saw the real great elite players do. Jordan, Bird, Magic, Shaq, Kobe, Tim Duncan. LeBron, there's times where he looks scared. He looks ordinary. I can't describe it. It's the same thing what happened when Jordan came back from his retirement in 1995. When he got to the playoffs in the second round against Orlando Magic, that was the first time you could really say, "Wow, I can't believe Jordan made that bad play. Wow, I can't believe Jordan got stripped. I can't believe Jordan missed that bank shot." But then, of course, Jordan came back and three-peated. But LeBron's will could be broken. The Cavs have to win, have to split the first 2 games. They go to Cleveland. Just like last year, they go back home, down 2-0. They're going to come out on fire. But if Golden State could weather that storm, this may be a sweep. I don't think it'll be a sweep. I don't think the Warriors are that good, that great, I should say, because they have a lot of shortcomings. Iguodala is iffy, not 100%. Curry might not be 100%. He still has that knee, even though he hasn't showed it. He put his fingerprints on Game 6 and 7 of those Western Conference Finals. So I'll say, listen, I'll just give I'm not going to say the Cavs is going to win, not because I'm a hater or anything. I'm giving you the real scoop. I'll say Golden State in 5, 6 tops. And just before we end this, I want to just go over the finals with these people complaining of the 4th consecutive matchup between these 2 teams. So there you have it in front of you. This is it. The Golden State and Cleveland. This will be their 4th time playing. And you see above, the Lakers and Knicks have played 5 times in the finals. Yes, the Knicks have been to the finals 5 times. But that's against Minnesota. That's way back in the day. And then the same thing with the Lakers and the Sixers. This is way back. But the most current in the modern NBA, you could say, is the Celtics and Lakers. That's, as I mentioned at the top of the hour. In the 80s, every year they were alternating championships. One year, if it was the Celtics, next year the Lakers would win the championship, or something would slip up for 1 year. But then every year, pretty much, that was the rivalry. Those teams, they although they respected each other, but it was the fans back then. It was something to see. Those games in LA, Showtime, and then when the series would go back east, that Boston crowd was, whoa, boy. That was a tough crowd. And the old Boston Garden was a very hot arena in June. I'm just talking about the action. I'm talking about the temperature. So I think this is good for the NBA, especially in a time where great teams are scarce, and especially at a time where defense is practically non-existent in the NBA. And I've said many times, if you follow me or if you heard this podcast before, that Golden State and Cleveland, they're not the greatest defensive teams, but they do play defense when they need to and when they have to. That's where they really turn it up, these teams. And when they start playing good defense, they lock it down, and then they show what they are as being elite teams. So I think that's going to do it for this week. We're going half hour. I know a lot of you. Last week we had an hour with Joe C., our special guest. So, like I said, if you're still with me, I hope you like what you're seeing. Wish somebody would leave feedback. I know today in social media it's impossible for anybody to actually leave any feedback. There's so much stuff going on. I don't know if we'll do another podcast this week. Maybe we'll do one for Friday after Game 1. Hopefully we'll publish it. Maybe Thursday night. I'm not sure. I'm working on having somebody else here. Well, it's not a surprise. I don't know what's going on with Lucas Rojas's podcast, Latin American Perspective. I heard he had his co-host Teddy. Now I heard Teddy's not doing it anymore, and I'll have Teddy on. He wants to talk about the NBA. We'll give him a shot, whatever. Maybe we'll get Lucas on here. We'll get his perspective on what's going on with his podcast. And maybe one day we'll if we shell out enough cash, we'll get Nick Durst from the Mets cast on Double G Sports to talk about the Mets and more. But also, I'm working on in June, and maybe in a week or two, I want to go in a different direction and talk about some pro wrestling. I know I mentioned we'll talk about WWE, but I'll actually have a special guest on who is a real wrestler. See, the Real Scoop will bring you a real wrestler. Hopefully he'll be on here, and we'll have a shoot interview podcast with the real wrestler. I don't know. You tell me if you want, but well, like I said, we'll see how this goes. We'll see if people are watching. But if you do like this podcast, share it, spread the word, tell your friends. I think it's entertaining. I think it's informative. So that'll be it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you very soon for episode 6.